If you are a casual GTA fan, you might not know this. But as many of you hardcore GTA fans are probably aware, the classic GTA, San Andreas originally had plans for there to be 3 playable protagonists. Just like what we saw in GTA 5 with Michael, Franklin, and Trevor. Wild, right? But unfortunately, due to the technical limitations of the PlayStation 2 at the time, Rockstar had to scale back their ambitions, and we ended up just getting CJ as the sole playable character. Which, don't get me wrong, CJ is an icon and his story is amazing. But can you imagine how crazy it would have been to be able to swap between 3 different protagonists in San Andreas? So, who were the other 2 characters originally planned to be playable? 1. Cesar Villalpando. You know, the guy who's the leader of the Vagos gang that CJ allies with. He could have been like the street hustler protagonist, giving us a different perspective on the gang lifestyle in Los Santos. 2. Mike Torino, the shady undercover government agent who gets CJ involved in all kinds of covert missions. Having him as a playable character could have let us experience the seedy world of corruption and conspiracy from the other side. Personally, I think those 2 would have been awesome additions as protagonists. Cesar representing the harsh realities of gang life, and Torino giving us that paranoid, conspiracies around every corner kind of vibe. Their perspectives could have contrasted really interestingly with CJ's storyline of trying to get his family back on track. Of course, with the PS2's hardware, having all 3 of those storylines fully fleshed out was just too much to handle. But man, what a game it could have been if they'd pulled it off, you know? Also, GTA 4 was going to be bigger. So, get this, the plan was for the game world of GTA 4 to be absolutely massive, like a straight-up tri-state area surrounding Liberty City. We're talking about having access to not just the city itself, but the entire states of New Jersey and Connecticut as well. Just let that scope sink in for a minute. Can you even imagine how insane that would have been? A game world that massive, filled with all sorts of towns, cities, suburbs, highways, you name it. The level of detail and variety they could have pulled off would have been mind-blowing. Imagine being able to drive from the heart of Liberty City, through the suburbs of New Jersey, all the way up to rural Connecticut without ever hitting a loading screen. That's some next-level immersion right there. But of course, this being the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era, there were some serious technical limitations preventing Rockstar from fully realizing that vision. They essentially had to make the tough call to drastically scale back the overall map size in order to devote more resources to crafting a more densely detailed and interactive Liberty City. And you know what? As much as I would have loved to explore that tri-state megamap, I can definitely respect the trade-off they made. Because while the world wasn't as huge as originally planned, Liberty City itself in GTA 4 is an absolute masterpiece of game design. The level of detail in the city's Rizlichny neighborhoods, the insane number of interiors you can explore, the living, breathing feel of the streets, it's just a technical marvel for its time. So yeah, it's disappointing that ambitious tri-state idea didn't fully come to fruition. But the fact that we still got an incredible, richly crafted open-world experience kinda makes up for it. An experience that truthfully pushed the limits of what could be done on those 7th-gen consoles. But man, can you just imagine what Rockstar could pull off nowadays with the power of PS5, Xbox Series XS, high-end PCs? Maybe they could finally realize that crazy tri-state dream for a future GTA title. An open-world game spanning multiple states, each area brimming with personality and things to do. The possibilities are endless, really. Anyway, let me know what you think of this abandoned tri-state concept down in the comments below. Alright, let me hip you all to something crazy that Rockstar Games did back in the day to make their games as authentic as possible. They actually hired real-life gang members and ex-convicts as consultants and actors. Yeah, you heard me right. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't that kinda dangerous or risky, bringing those kinds of people into a game development studio? But see, that's exactly why it was such a bold, gutsy move by Rockstar. They weren't afraid to get their hands dirty and dive headfirst into the gritty realities they were trying to portray in their games. Rockstar would literally reach out to former gangbangers, drug dealers, car thieves, you name it, to come in and share their first-hand experiences with that life. And we're not just talking about surface-level stories here. These were hardened criminals opening up about the most intense, violent, and just straight-up raw parts of their former lives on the streets. And Rockstar didn't just use them as consultants either. They actually had these former gang members and convicts do motion capture work and voice acting for the game characters. So when you're playing a GTA game and you've got this unbelievably authentic feeling gangbanger spouting lines at you, chances are that dialogue was improved by someone who had lived that life for real. To me, that's just such an incredibly creative and bold approach by Rockstar. They could have easily taken the safe, sanitized route and based everything off secondhand research. But nah, they said screw that. We want the real thing. We want these characters and stories to have been shaped by the harsh truth, not some rose-tinted fantasy. And can you even imagine being in those motion capture sessions? You've got professional developers and artists working alongside legitimate gang members and ex-cons. Rockstar was basically allowing people from two completely opposite worlds to mix and create this crazy collaborative environment. I'm sure there were some intense moments, but also probably a lot of mutual understanding that came from that process too. That dedication to realism, to telling those harsh urban stories through a genuinely authentic lens, that's what has set Rockstar apart and allowed them to create these genre-defining crime games that resonate so powerfully. They were never afraid to get their hands dirty and go straight to the source. So yeah, while it may have seemed like an unnecessarily risky move from the outside, I personally think that gutsy approach of hiring real gangsters and convicts is exactly why Rockstar's crime games feel so grounded and visceral. They did whatever it took to keep shit 100, as they say. Alright, got another juicy behind-the-scenes story for you all about Rockstar Games and just how far they're willing to go to make their games as good as they can be, even if it means working with modders. So let me take you to GTA Online. Anyone who played that game on launch remembers how absurdly long those loading times were, right? We're talking like 5 minutes or more sometimes just to get into the game. It was borderline unplayable. Well, it turns out there was this relatively unknown modder had figured out a way to significantly optimize GTA's loading process through some code tweaks and memory management tricks. Suddenly, load times were cut down to like 15-20 seconds. A game-changing difference. Now, any other big AAA company might have tried to shut that mod down or take legal action against the creator for tampering with their game's code. But not Rockstar. These mad lads actually reached out to Raise It and were like, "Yo, we gotta work together on implementing your fix for real." Long story short, Rockstar offered to pay modder $10,000, a nice chunk of change, to bring his loading time optimization code into the official game. They put their money where their mouth is, and compensated this random modder just to improve the experience for all PC players. To me, that's such a powerful example of how invaluable the modding community is, and how smart companies will go out of their way to embrace modders rather than fight them. Because at the end of the day, sometimes the solutions to big problems can come from the most unexpected places. Here you've got this multi-billion-dollar game company that undoubtedly has an army of engineers on payroll, and they couldn't crack the code on reducing load times. But then this solo modding wizard came through with the answer. It really shows that no perspective should be overlooked when it comes to improving games and solving issues. And for Rockstar to be so open-minded, to see that value in an unofficial mod, and then put their money where their mouth is by hiring that modder, that's an absolutely legendary power move in my books. It sends such a strong message of respect and appreciation for the modding scene. So while some gaming companies might view modders as a threat or a nuisance, Rockstar showed that if you can put your ego aside and adapt an "it takes a village" mentality, you can create some really special experiences for players. Speaking of wild and unexpected GTA connections, let me hip y'all to this one. The voice actors who played CJ from San Andreas and Franklin from GTA 5, they're actually cousins in real life. Isn't that just the craziest bit of trivia? You've got two iconic protagonists from arguably the most beloved GTA games of all time, and the dudes who portrayed them just so happen to be blood relatives. The chances of that had to be astronomically low. For those who don't know, CJ was voiced by Chris Ballard, going by the stage name Young Melee, while his cousin Sean Fontano brought Franklin to life nearly a decade later in GTA 5. Two generational icons of the GTA verse coming from the same family tree. I can only imagine what kinds of conversations and friendly competition went down between Chris and Sean during the development of those games. Like, was there any subtle one-upmanship happening? Or were they just constantly gassing each other up, hyping the other's performance? It's just a really fun, feel-good bit of trivia that makes you appreciate how the gaming universe works in mysterious ways sometimes. Because if you think about it, all those fan theories about Franklin being the descendant of CJ, while those were always a bit of a stretch chronology-wise, the fact that their VAs are actually cousins does add this extra meta layer of connectivity between the two characters. So, in a roundabout way, I guess you could say the CJ is Franklin's ancestor theory ended up being true from a certain point of view. Just instead of it being a straight-line father-son situation, it's more of a spiritual relation through the voice actors' family ties. Also, GTA 5 was the first game in the entire Grand Theft Auto franchise to feature a fully original score, and soundtrack is low-key mind-blowing when you think about it. Instead of atmospheric cinematic scores or hard-hitting original tunes to immerse you in the crime-ridden chaos, those classic GTAs were strictly using licensed music and existing songs from the radio stations. Don't get me wrong, the radio has always been a brilliant part of the GTA experience with those hilariously on-point parody stations and deep track lists. But relying solely on external music with no original compositions is just wild to think about nowadays. Yet despite that lack of a handcrafted score, the 3D universe games like Vice City, San Andreas, and even GTA 4 still managed to etch themselves into gaming lore with their incredible storytelling, breathtaking open-world environments, and just an unmatched attitude that oozed outrageous satire and style. Those games permanently shaped 3D open-world sandboxes and became emblematic of their respective eras without needing a single note of purposely composed music. The vibe and soul of those virtual cities was accomplished through impeccable world-building, sharp writing, and an unmistakable attention to detail across every single aspect of the experience, except the lack of an original score. So when you really think about it, the OG Grand Theft Auto entries reaching those soaring heights of quality and influence without purpose-made music is honestly kind of astonishing. It's a true testament to how insanely well-realized and ahead of their time those worlds were in every other regard. That said, you could definitely argue that the games were still being held back from their true cinematic potential by not having professionally produced music to heighten the drama, set the tone, and distinguish each protagonist's personal journey. Because make no mistake, GTA 5's phenomenal score and soundtrack elevates that game's production values and narrative immersion to another stratosphere. And we are done. There are still many crazy stories to tell, but that's for someday else. For today, just subscribe to the channel and like this video. I know you love GTA, you can do that. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care and have a nice day.